Her sister smiled as the knife went in. It wasn't a blade of steel, but a betrayal wrapped in silk and soft words. Standing before the pack, the very person who shared my blood looked me in the eye and declared me unfit. In that one moment, months of whispered lies and calculated doubts finally surfaced, turning my own people against me. The rejection from my mate followed like a physical blow, snapping our bond so violently I could feel my wolf shatter inside. My sister didn't flinch. She simply stepped into my place, accepting the alpha's hand as if it had always belonged to her. They expected me to break. They expected me to crawl away and die in the shadows of my own replacement. But they forgot one thing: the enemy was watching. From the edge of the neutral zone, where the shadows are thickest, the enemy alpha stepped forward. He is the man my pack has feared for generations, the ruler they've spent lifetimes preparing to fight. He didn't come to start a war. He came because he knew that a wolf betrayed by her own blood is the most dangerous force in the world. He didn't claim me as a prisoner. He claimed me as his Luna. If you've ever been replaced by someone who was supposed to love you, if you've watched a liar take the life you built, stay with me. Because my sister is about to find out that a throne built on betrayal is a very fragile thing. And the enemy she fears is the only one who knows my true worth. If this moment cuts close, leave a comment and subscribe to follow what happens when the enemy claims what her own pack discarded. Among the Western territories, power was inherited quietly. Not always through strength, not always through truth, but through proximity, through who stood closest to the alpha when decisions were made, and who learned how to speak ambition without sounding dangerous. Her sister had mastered that art early. Where she was quiet, her sister was visible. Where she questioned, her sister affirmed. Where she felt the weight of loyalty, her sister felt opportunity. They had been raised under the same roof, taught the same laws, sworn to the same pack. But only one of them learned how to turn love into leverage. The first fracture came long before the mating ceremony. It came in glances held too long, in advice offered with subtle redirection, in stories retold with just enough distortion to make doubt feel reasonable. Elders began to look at her with concern instead of trust. Guards hesitated when she spoke. Even the alpha, once steady in his regard, grew distant. Her sister never denied it. She never had to. By the time the mating circle was drawn, the outcome had already been decided. The rejection was swift, public, final. The betrayal was quieter, but far more complete. Her sister accepted the role she had been positioning herself for, stepping into the space beside the alpha as if she had always belonged there. No apology followed, no explanation, just silence. Exile would have been kinder. Instead, she was left standing at the edge of the pack, stripped of bond, status, and voice, forced to watch the life she thought was hers settle comfortably onto someone else's shoulders. That was when the war drums began. The enemy alpha had been pressing their borders for months, his name spoken only in warnings and strategy briefings. They called him ruthless, calculating, uninterested in mercy, a ruler who did not negotiate unless it benefited him. They did not know the full truth. He had been watching the pack long before the betrayal, watching the sister who moved too easily into power, watching the one who was cast aside without protest. And when the pack turned its back on her, believing they had eliminated weakness, The enemy alpha finally stepped out of shadow, not to attack, to claim. Because some rulers don't take what shines brightest. They take what survives being broken. And when he finally approached her, alone, unguarded, deliberate, he didn't offer rescue. He offered a question that shattered everything she thought she understood. "Do you want revenge?" the enemy alpha asked quietly. "Or do you want the truth to burn where they can't ignore it?" She left before dawn. Not because she was ordered to, but because staying meant watching her sister wear a future that had once been promised to her. The pack stirred as she crossed the outer paths, guards averting their eyes with practiced discomfort, elders pretending not to notice her passing. No one stopped her. That hurt more than rejection ever could. The mate bond lay in ruins inside her chest, not severed cleanly, not mercifully quiet. It felt like something torn loose and left to bleed, every breath scraping against the damage. Her wolf paced restlessly beneath her ribs, wounded but not broken, anger simmering under shock. She didn't cry. She walked until the familiar scent lines faded, until the territory markers dissolved into wild ground that answered to no banner. Only then did her legs give out, knees hitting frozen earth as the truth finally caught up with her. Her sister's voice echoed in her mind. "She's unfit." The word had been chosen carefully, not weak, not disloyal. Unfit. A flaw that sounded reasonable, permanent, safe to remove. She pressed her fist into the dirt, breathing hard, fury and grief tangling in her throat. "You planned this," she whispered into the cold air. "All of it." The forest answered with silence, then pressure. Not the crushing dominance of a patrol, not the probing awareness of scouts. This was different, controlled, focused, like a gaze that didn't need eyes to see. She rose slowly, instincts screaming. He stepped out from between the trees without haste, as if the land itself had made room for him. The enemy alpha. She recognized him instantly, not by scars or size, but by the way the world seemed to align around his presence. He wore no pack colors, no sigils of rank, yet authority radiated from him in steady waves, unforced and absolute. She straightened, pain flaring in her chest. "If you're here to finish what they started." "I'm not," he said calmly. His voice was low, even. No threat in it, no reassurance either. "Then why follow me?" she demanded. He studied her in silence for a long moment, gaze sharp but unreadable. She felt it like heat beneath her skin, not invasive, not claiming, assessing. "Because betrayal leaves a mark," he said finally, "and yours was loud enough to reach my borders." Her jaw clenched. "Congratulations, you've seen enough." "Have I?" he asked quietly. Her wolf stirred at his tone, not in fear, not in submission, alert. "You were replaced," he continued, publicly. Strategically, she flinched despite herself. "Your sister wanted the seat beside your alpha," he said. "But she also wanted something else." "And what's that?" she snapped. "Legitimacy," he replied. "Your removal made her claim clean." The truth struck hard. "You've been watching us," she said. "Yes." "For how long?" "Long enough to know you weren't the problem." Anger surged, hot, reckless. "You don't know me." "No," he agreed, "but I know patterns, and I know what packs discard when they're afraid of instability." She laughed bitterly. Then you know they'll hunt me. They will, he said. Eventually. Her pulse quickened. And you? I already have, he replied. The admission sent a chill through her. Not fear, but awareness. Why? He stepped closer, stopping just short of invading her space. His dominance brushed against her senses, restrained but unmistakable. Her wolf bristled, not recoiling, not yielding. Because you don't disappear when you're cut, he said. You endure. She swallowed. That doesn't make me useful to you. No, he said evenly. It makes you dangerous to people who rely on appearances. She held his gaze, breath steadying, despite the storm inside her. You're my enemy. Yes. And you want me to trust you? I want you to choose, he replied. Those are different things. The bond inside her stirred faintly, not toward him, not away, just aware. Come with me, the enemy alpha said, or walk alone. Either way, your sister's victory won't last. She hesitated, heart hammering. Why would you want a discarded wolf? She asked quietly. His eyes darkened, not with hunger, not with claim, intent. Because I don't want what shines, he said. I want what survives betrayal. The forest held its breath. She drew a slow breath, pain and fury crystallizing into something sharper. I won't be used, she said. Good, he replied. Neither will I. She stepped past him, then stopped. If I come, she said carefully, I don't kneel. A pause. Then he inclined his head, just enough to acknowledge the line she had drawn. Then walk beside me. She took one last look back toward the land she had been pushed from, toward the sister who had smiled as she fell. Then she turned away. The enemy alpha did not touch her. He did not claim her. He simply walked with her into territory where betrayal would finally have consequences. They moved east as the light strengthened, not following paths, but cutting through ground that resisted ownership. The enemy alpha did not hurry. He set a pace that forced steadiness, as if urgency itself were a weakness he refused to indulge. She matched him, step for step. Her body ached. Grief lodged deep in her muscles, betrayal still pulsing in her blood. But she did not falter. The wolf inside her was tense, alert, wounded pride sharpening its senses rather than dulling them. You didn't ask what I want in return, she said, eventually, breaking the silence. He glanced at her once, then returned his attention to the terrain ahead. Because I don't bargain with people who haven't finished deciding who they are. The answer unsettled her more than a demand would have. They reached a ridge overlooking a wide basin carved by old rivers and older wars. No pack scents marked it. No patrols passed through. The air felt stripped of pretense, clean, unforgiving. This is neutral ground, he said. For now, she studied the basin. Your enemy territory. Yes. And you bring me here openly. I don't hide what I intend to keep visible, he replied. Her pulse jumped. You intend to keep me. He stopped then, fully stopped, and turned to face her. The shift was immediate. The air tightened, dominance rising not as threat, but as gravity. I intend to offer you a choice, he said. If you stay with me, it will be because you decided the cost was worth paying. And the cost? She asked. War, he said simply. With your pack, with your sister, with anyone who thinks you were easy to discard. The truth landed heavy. She exhaled slowly. You want a Luna. Yes. No flourish, no denial. A strategic one, she said. A sovereign one, he corrected. I don't need a symbol. I need someone who won't fracture when pressure hits. She felt the bond inside her stir faintly, resentful, wounded, listening. You don't know how broken I am, she said quietly. I know exactly how broken you aren't, he replied. You stood when you were replaced. You walked when you were erased. And you didn't beg. She looked away, jaw tight. That doesn't mean I'm healed. No, he agreed. It means you're honest. They descended into the basin as the sun climbed higher. The land changed subtly, rock giving way to hardy grass, the air warming as if acknowledging their passage. She felt eyes on her then, not hostile, not welcoming, curious. Figures emerged from the edges of the basin, wolves bearing the marks of the enemy Alpha's pack. They did not surround her. They did not test her dominance. They observed. Whispers moved through them. That's her, someone murmured, the one who was replaced. She's not marked. Yet. The last word tightened her chest. The enemy Alpha stopped at the center of the basin, turning to face his pack. His presence settled the murmurs instantly. This is not a claim, he said evenly. This is an introduction. Silence followed, charged, respectful. She felt it then, the difference between being evaluated and being weighed. A woman stepped forward, tall, scarred, eyes sharp with intelligence. You bring her openly, she said. You know what that signals. Yes, the enemy Alpha replied, and I know the risk. The woman's gaze shifted to her. Do you know it? She met the woman's eyes without flinching. Yes. And you still came. Yes. The woman studied her for a long moment, then nodded once. Then you're braver than most. A younger wolf scoffed quietly. Or foolish. The enemy Alpha's gaze snapped toward him, cold, precise. The scoff died instantly. She will not be tested through humiliation, he said. If you challenge her, do it honestly. The pack shifted, alert, curious. She felt the weight of it settle into her spine. Not crushing, not thrilling. Real. You haven't told them why you chose me, she said quietly to him. I don't need to, he replied. They'll see. She swallowed. And my sister? His expression hardened. She made her move. Now she'll answer for it. The bond stirred again, anger threading through its ache. She took a steady breath. If I become your Luna, she said carefully, it won't be to hurt her. No, he agreed. It will be to expose her. A chill ran through her, not fear. Clarity. He turned back to the pack. She will stay, he said. Not as a guest, not as a prize. His gaze flicked to her. As a choice. The pack watched her, waiting. She straightened, meeting their attention head-on. I didn't come to replace anyone, she said. And I didn't come to be rescued. The basin held its breath. I came because betrayal doesn't get to decide my worth, she continued. And because I won't disappear quietly so others can feel secure. Silence followed, then acceptance, quiet and deliberate. The enemy Alpha inclined his head slightly, acknowledging the line she had drawn. Then we begin, he said. She felt it settle. Not a bond, not a claim, a beginning forged in consequence. The enemy Alpha did not give her a place beside him that night. That, more than anything else, unsettled the pack. Instead, he placed her among the inner circle, not elevated, not hidden, watched, weighed, allowed to exist without explanation. It was a calculated discomfort, one that forced attention without granting ownership. She felt it immediately. Eyes tracked her movements as she crossed the basin, murmurs trailing behind her like dust. Some wolves looked at her with curiosity, others with open suspicion. A few, too few, looked at her with something close to recognition. The woman who had spoken earlier approached her near the fire line, movements unhurried, posture relaxed but ready. I'm Kareth, she said. War captain. I know, she replied. Kareth's reputation preceded her. Strategist, survivor, unyielding. Kareth studied her closely. You didn't flinch when he offered war. No, she said. Because it's already here. A corner of Kareth's mouth lifted. Good answer. She gestured toward the surrounding wolves. They won't accept you easily. I'm not here to be accepted, she replied. Kareth nodded once. Then you'll last longer than most. As night deepened, the enemy Alpha addressed his pack. Not from a raised platform, not with ceremony. He stood among them, voice steady and restrained. She is not marked, he said. She is not claimed. Anyone who treats her as either will answer to me. A ripple of tension moved through the crowd. She is here because she chose to be, he continued. And because her presence will test us. A younger wolf spoke up, unable to contain himself. Test us how? The enemy Alpha's gaze fixed on him. By refusing to break when you expect her to. Silence fell. Later, as the fires burned low, she found herself at the basin's edge, staring out into darkened land that did not yet feel like hers. The enemy Alpha approached without announcement, stopping at a respectful distance. They're unsettled, she said. Yes, you wanted that. Yes, she turned to face him. You're forcing them to confront something they didn't plan for. Good, he replied. So are you. She hesitated, then asked the question that had been pressing against her ribs since the moment they crossed into his territory. What happens if they decide I'm not worth the disruption? His gaze sharpened, not with threat, but certainty. Then they will leave. She searched his face. You'd let them? I won't anchor a pack that only functions through comfort, he said. Neither should you. The words settled heavily. She laughed softly, not in humor, but disbelief. You don't compromise. No, he agreed. I adapt. A sudden shift rippled through the air, familiar, sharp, invasive. Pack scent. Her stomach dropped. They followed. Yes, he replied calmly. Your sister would not let you vanish without confirming the damage. Torches flared at the basin's edge as figures emerged from the shadows. Her former pack, led not by the alpha, but by her sister. She stood tall as her sister approached, chin lifted, expression carefully composed. "There you are," her sister said lightly. "You left without saying goodbye." She felt the old instinct to shrink stir, then die. "You took my place," she replied evenly. That felt like goodbye enough. Her sister's gaze flicked to the enemy alpha, calculating. "I see you found new protection." "I found choice," she said. "Something you never offered me." The enemy alpha stepped forward then. "Presence unmistakable. State your purpose," he said coolly. Her sister inclined her head slightly, respectful but not submissive. "We came to retrieve what belongs to us." A murmur rippled through his pack. "She doesn't belong to you," he replied. Her sister smiled faintly. "She was ours first." "No," he said. "She survived you." The words cut deeper than any insult. Her sister's gaze hardened. "You don't know what she is." "I know exactly what she is," the enemy alpha replied. "And so do you. That's why you removed her." A flicker of something ugly crossed her sister's face, then vanished. "You think standing beside him makes you powerful?" her sister asked her directly. She met her gaze steadily. "I think betraying me made you afraid." Silence snapped tight. "You always imagined yourself stronger," she continued. "But you needed me gone to prove it." Her sister's composure cracked. "Just enough." "We'll see how long he keeps you," her sister said coldly. "Enemy alphas don't collect broken things." The enemy alpha smiled then, not warm, not cruel. "They don't," he agreed. "They reforge them." Her sister recoiled slightly, then masked it. "This isn't over," she warned. "No," she replied calmly. "It's just no longer quiet." The opposing pack withdrew, tension hanging thick in the air. As the last torch disappeared into the dark, the enemy alpha turned to her. "You didn't bend," he said. "I'm done bending," she replied. The basin breathed again. The first real test survived. And somewhere deep beneath the pain and fury, something new began to take shape. The night did not return to normal after her sister left. It tightened. Whispers spread through the enemy alpha's camp like smoke under stone, curling into every corner, settling into every silence. Wolves spoke in low voices, arguments cutting off when she passed. Some watched her with sharpened interest, others with thinly veiled resentment. She felt it all, and did not retreat. At dawn, Kareth found her at the basin's edge, where frost clung stubbornly to the ground, despite the rising sun. "You disrupted more than you realized last night," the war captain said. She didn't turn. "Good." Kareth studied her profile. "You stood your ground against blood." "I stood my ground against betrayal," she replied. "The blood just happened to wear a familiar face." Kareth's mouth tightened. "That makes it worse." "Yes," she agreed. "For her." The enemy alpha called a council before midday, not a formal gathering, not a spectacle. Wolves assembled in a rough circle, tension thick enough to taste. This was not about hierarchy. This was about fracture. She was brought here without claim. One alpha from the northern edge said sharply, "And now her pack walks into our territory unchallenged." "They walked in," the enemy alpha replied calmly. "And they walked out." Because you allowed it, another snapped. Yes, he agreed. Because I wanted them to understand what restraint looks like. Murmurs rippled. She destabilizes us, a third voice said. Whether she intends to or not. The enemy Alpha's gaze moved slowly across the circle. So does dishonesty. All eyes turned to her. She stepped forward before he could speak again. If you're waiting for me to apologize, she said evenly, you'll be waiting a long time. Silence fell. I didn't ask to be betrayed, she continued, and I didn't ask to be brought here, but I chose to stay. A wolf snarled quietly. And why should we accept that choice? She met his gaze without flinching. You don't have to, but if you're afraid of what my presence reveals, ask yourself why. The enemy Alpha watched closely, not intervening, not shielding. You want clarity? She pressed. Then here it is. My sister removed me because I didn't fit the shape of power she wanted to wear. If you remove me now for the same reason, then you're no better. The words hit hard. A younger wolf shifted uneasily. She's not wrong. A growl cut him off, but it lacked conviction. The enemy Alpha raised a hand. Silence returned instantly. She stays, he said. Not because I command it, but because no one here has proven she doesn't belong. Challenge flared in several eyes. Then test her, someone said. The words hung in the air. The enemy Alpha did not answer immediately. His gaze flicked to her, questioning, not ordering. She nodded once. Fine, she said. Test me. The basin stilled. Not a dominance test, not combat. Something older. Kareth stepped forward, eyes narrowed. You understand what that means? Yes, she replied. It means I don't hide. They moved to the basin's center, where the ground dipped slightly, a natural convergence point where scent, sound, and presence magnified. Kareth circled her slowly. This isn't about strength, she said. It's about fracture. I know, she replied. Then open yourself. She closed her eyes, not in submission, but in refusal to perform. She let the pain surface, the rejection, the bond snapping. Her sister's smile. Her scent shifted, not sharpening, not weakening. It deepened. Grief, fury, endurance layered together without breaking. The wolves around them stiffened. Kareth inhaled sharply. She's not unstable. No, the enemy Alpha said quietly. She's integrated. A tremor ran through the basin. Not magical, not violent, resonant. Her wolf lifted fully inside her, not snarling, not bowing, standing. Kareth stepped back slowly. If she fractures, she said to the pack, it won't be quietly, and it won't be alone. Silence followed, then reluctant understanding. The enemy Alpha moved beside her, not touching, not claiming. This is what you feared, he said to the circle, not her weakness, her refusal to shatter cleanly. One by one, tension eased, not gone, but altered. Later, as the council dispersed, she found herself alone with him near the ridge. You didn't stop them, she said. No, he replied. You didn't need me to. She met his gaze. If I become your Luna? Not yet, he said immediately. The interruption surprised her. You're not ready, he continued, and neither is the pack. She studied him. You're delaying on purpose. Yes, he said simply. Because what comes next has to be earned. A slow, dangerous warmth settled into her chest. Not bond, not claim. Anticipation. Below them, the basin moved with new awareness. Wolves no longer whispered when she passed. They watched, measured, waiting. And far beyond the ridge, her sister would be doing the same, realizing too late that the betrayal she engineered had not destroyed her. It had positioned her. By the fifth night, no one pretended she was temporary. Her presence had settled into the basin like a fault line, quiet on the surface, unmistakable beneath it. Wolves adjusted unconsciously, giving her space not out of fear, but recalibration. The pack no longer asked why she was there. They began asking what her staying would change. That was when the enemy alpha began to test her, not with commands, with proximity. He walked beside her during patrols, said little during strategy briefings, and placed her where tension gathered thickest. She was never shielded from dissent, never spared the weight of being watched. It was deliberate. You're measuring me, she said one evening as they crossed the ridge overlooking the basin, moonlight cutting sharp lines across stone. Yes, he replied. And if I fail? Then I misjudged, he said simply. And I adjust. The honesty struck harder than reassurance ever could. You don't soften outcomes, she observed. No, he agreed. I respect them. Below them, movement caught her eye. 3 wolves approaching from the western boundary. Not scouts. Messengers. Her pulse quickened. That's my pack. Yes, he replied. They won't stop coming. The messengers approached cautiously, heads lowered but eyes alert. At their center stood her sister's lieutenant, a man who had once laughed beside her at shared meals. She wants to speak, he said stiffly, privately. She felt the old instinct to brace, then let it pass. No, she said calmly. The lieutenant blinked. She made her choice publicly, she continued. If she has something to say now, she can say it where it can't be twisted. The lieutenant hesitated, then nodded. She's afraid. That surprised her. Of what? She asked. The man swallowed. Of losing control of the narrative. The enemy alpha's gaze sharpened. Tell her, he said, that silence was her weapon. She doesn't get it back. The messengers withdrew, unease trailing behind them like a scent. That night, tension snapped. Her former alpha crossed the boundary himself, alone, stripped of entourage, pride etched deep into his posture. He stopped several paces away, eyes flicking between her and the enemy alpha. This ends now, he said flatly. She stepped forward before the enemy alpha could respond. You don't get to decide that. You're destabilizing everything, the alpha snapped. Your sister is barely holding the pack together. She tilted her head slightly. You mean the structure built on my absence? His jaw clenched. You were never meant to lead. I never tried to, she replied. You just couldn't afford for me to exist. The alpha's gaze flicked to the enemy alpha. This is manipulation. No, the enemy alpha replied coolly. This is consequence. The alpha turned back to her, voice lowering. Come home. We'll fix this. She laughed softly. Not cruel, not bitter. You already fixed it. Confusion flickered across his face. You showed me exactly what you protect, she continued, and what you sacrifice. He stepped closer. You don't belong here. She held his gaze steadily. Neither did I belong where you left me. Silence stretched. The alpha exhaled sharply. If you stay, there will be war. The enemy alpha's voice cut through the tension like steel. There already is. Her former alpha's eyes narrowed. Over her? Yes, the enemy alpha said without hesitation. Because she exposes lies my enemies depend on. The words landed like a declaration. Her former alpha looked at her then, not with anger, but something like fear. You think you've won. She shook her head. This isn't about winning. It's about not being erased. He stared at her for a long moment, then turned and left without another word. Later, as the basin settled into uneasy quiet, she stood alone near the ridge, watching distant fires flicker beyond the boundary. You didn't flinch, the enemy alpha said quietly as he joined her. I stopped imagining I needed permission, she replied. His gaze lingered on her, not possessive, not claiming, evaluating something deeper. You're becoming more than a catalyst, he said. They're starting to align around you. She swallowed. That wasn't my intent. It rarely is, he replied. That's why it works. She turned to face him fully. If I become your Luna, it won't be because you need me. He held her gaze, expression unreadable. No, he said. It will be because the realm does. A shiver ran through her, not fear, recognition. Below them, the basin breathed in quiet readiness. Wolves gathered in small clusters, no longer whispering, no longer watching her like an anomaly. They were watching her like a possibility. And far beyond the ridge, her sister would be realizing something terrifying. The betrayal she engineered had not destroyed her. It had elevated her to a position no one could quietly remove again. The shift came quietly, not through challenge, not through ceremony, through alignment. She noticed it first in the way wolves began to defer without being told, not stepping back, not lowering their heads, but pausing, waiting, listening. Decisions that once funneled straight to the enemy alpha now stalled briefly when she was present, as if the pack needed to feel the shape of her response before moving forward. It unsettled her. You're changing their instincts, she said one night as she and the enemy alpha walked the perimeter ridge, the basin glowing faintly below with scattered firelight. I'm letting them recalibrate, he replied. You're the variable. I never asked for that. No, he agreed. You endured it. Below them, Kareth drilled patrol formations, not barking orders, but asking questions. Wolves responded with thought instead of reflex. It was slower, messier, stronger. They're adapting to shared authority, she said. Yes, he replied, which terrifies packs built on singular dominance. Her breath fogged in the cool air. My sister won't tolerate it. No, he said. She'll try to fracture it. As if summoned by the words, a sharp pulse rippled through the land. Foreign scent, familiar intent. Her sister. She felt it before the messenger arrived, a tightness coiling low in her chest. Not fear, not anger, Anticipation edged with resolve. "She's coming herself this time," the scout reported quietly. "With witnesses." The enemy Alpha's gaze sharpened. "She wants legitimacy. She wants control," she corrected. They met her at the basin's edge just before dusk. Her sister approached with measured grace, flanked by elders and guards, not an army, but enough to broadcast intent. She wore authority well now, posture perfected, expression carefully composed for public consumption. "Sister," she said softly, "you look, well." "You look prepared," she replied evenly. The enemy Alpha did not speak. He didn't need to. "This doesn't have to escalate," her sister continued. "The packs are watching. We can resolve this cleanly." "Cleanly for whom?" she asked. "For the realm," her sister said. "For stability." A murmur rippled through the gathered wolves. "Stability that requires my silence?" she asked calmly. Her sister's eyes hardened for a fraction of a second. "You were always too sentimental." "And you were always afraid of what you couldn't shape," she replied. The enemy Alpha stepped forward then, not to dominate, but to anchor. "State your claim," he said coldly. Her sister lifted her chin. She was removed for the good of the pack. "Her presence here undermines established law." "Law built on omission," he replied. "This isn't your fight," her sister snapped. "No," he agreed. "It's yours." Her sister turned back to her, voice lowering. "Come back. I'll make space for you." The lie sat perfectly between them, smooth, practiced, hollow. She smiled faintly. "You already did. That's how I saw you clearly." Her sister's composure cracked then, not fully, but enough. "You think standing beside him makes you untouchable," she hissed. "I think standing in truth makes me visible," she replied. The enemy Alpha watched closely as her sister made her final move. "She destabilizes hierarchy," her sister announced loudly, turning to the gathered witnesses. "If she remains here, packs will fracture." Silence followed. Then Kareth stepped forward. "Packs fracture when leadership lies," the war captain said evenly. "Not when it's questioned." Another wolf spoke, then another, voices layering, not shouting, not rebelling, acknowledging. Her sister's eyes widened as the sound of it hit her. Not allegiance, consensus. "You taught them to doubt," her sister accused her. "No," she replied. "I refused to disappear so you could feel secure." The enemy Alpha moved beside her then, voice calm and unyielding. "This ends now." Her sister laughed sharply. "You think you've won?" "No," he replied. "But you've lost control." The realization struck her sister hard. She stepped back instinctively, gaze darting across faces that no longer mirrored her certainty. "This isn't finished," she said tightly. "No," she agreed. "It's finished being quiet." Her sister withdrew with her entourage, posture rigid, authority leaking with every step. As dusk settled, the basin exhaled. Wolves gathered in small groups, voices low but no longer cautious. Decisions moved outward instead of upward. She stood still amid it all, heart steady, spine straight. "You didn't claim me," she said quietly to the enemy Alpha. "No," he replied. "I waited." She turned to face him. "If I accept being your Luna, then it won't be because of war," he finished, "or revenge." It will be because this, she gestured toward the basin, is already happening. He held her gaze for a long moment. Yes, he said, and because you won't let it collapse into something smaller. The bond stirred then, not aching, not demanding, aligned. Below them, the pack moved with new rhythm, uneven, alive, honest. The realm was no longer bracing for impact. It was reorganizing around truth. The declaration came at dawn, not announced by horns or messengers, but by movement. Wolves gathered at the basin's center without being summoned, forming a wide, imperfect circle that reflected the new order taking shape. No raised platform, no banners, just presence, intentional and unforced. She stood at the edge at first, watching it assemble. You don't have to step in, the enemy Alpha said quietly beside her. I know, she replied. But you will, he said, not as prediction, but recognition. She inhaled slowly and moved forward. The circle adjusted instinctively, space opening without command. Kareth took a position slightly behind her, not guarding, not leading, witnessing. The enemy Alpha remained where he was. That too was deliberate. She felt the weight of it then, not pressure, not fear. Responsibility that did not demand obedience, only honesty. I won't give you certainty, she said, voice steady enough to carry. And I won't give you comfort. Silence held. I was betrayed by my sister because I couldn't be shaped, she continued. I was rejected because my presence made control harder. If that disqualifies me in your eyes, leave now. No one moved. Good, she said softly. Then listen. She spoke of a mission, of how packs learned to call silence stability and obedience peace, of how loyalty was praised when it protected power and punished when it questioned it. She did not name her sister. She didn't need to. This doesn't end with me, she said. If I become your Luna, it won't be because I am chosen above you. It will be because I stand among you. A ripple moved through the circle, uneasy, hopeful. The enemy Alpha stepped forward then, stopping beside her without touching. The gesture was subtle. It mattered. She will not rule alone, he said, and neither will I. Murmurs stirred. We don't need a symbol, he continued. We need coherence, accountability, and someone who won't disappear when challenged. He turned to her. Say it. She met his gaze and felt the bond rise, not flaring, not searing, settled, ready. I accept, she said. Not to command, not to conquer, but to hold this line where truth meets consequence. The bond activated fully then, not with heat, with resonance. Her scent shifted, deepening, clarifying, threaded with his in a way that did not eclipse either. Wolves felt it and stilled, a collective breath drawn and held. The enemy Alpha inclined his head, not claiming, acknowledging. She is my Luna, he said. By choice. The circle did not bow, they aligned. Later, as the sun climbed and the basin settled into its new rhythm, she stood with him at the ridge. The valley unfolding below like a map no longer marked by fear. They'll test us, she said. They should, he replied. If they stop, we're lying. She smiled faintly. You don't soften outcomes. No, he said. I respect them. Below, wolves moved with purpose, no longer whispering, no longer watching her as an anomaly. They consulted, disagreed, adjusted, alive. A messenger approached, breathless. "Your sister has called an emergency council," he reported. "She's claiming provocation." She nodded. She would. "What do you want done?" he asked. She considered, then shook her head. "Nothing." The messenger blinked. "Nothing?" "Let her speak," she said calmly. "Truth doesn't need a response to be heard." The enemy Alpha watched her with something like quiet pride. "You won't chase legitimacy." "No," she said. "I'll let it come to me. Or not at all." As the messenger departed, she felt the last threads of her former life loosen. Not cut. Released. She had not been replaced. She had been revealed. The enemy Alpha turned slightly toward her. "Walk with me," he said. "As long as it makes sense." She met his gaze, steady and sure. "Always." They descended together, not ahead of the pack, not behind it. Within it. The realm would argue. Councils would fracture. Some would call her dangerous. They wouldn't be wrong. Because she did not rise to rule through conquest or crown. She stood where betrayal ended, and truth could no longer be buried. Betrayed by her sister and discarded by her pack. She did not beg for a throne. She became the line truth crossed, and the enemy Alpha claimed her not to rule beside him but to keep the realm honest where lies once thrived.